Well, do we have any questions or? Yes.
About the precepts, like you talked a little bit about some stuff about the precepts, and I'm just wondering, like when when someone is doing something that corresponds to the precept and asks you to do it, how do you stand up for yourself and say no and be assertive, or just walk away? How do you critically think about it, process it, and say no?
So I think you're saying in a situation where somebody might ask you to do something that you think may not be consistent with keeping the precepts. Well then, yes, you need to examine it. You definitely need to decline to do something like that. When you say how, you have to have the clarity in your own mind that allows you just to say no.
I think it's practice, right?
What?
It takes practice.
Practice saying no.
Yeah.
That is a very important skill to have, to be able to say no when things are not in keeping with your ethics and your morals and not good for you. I don't have a simple answer for you except that you need to learn how to do that, and if you find that you're not doing that, you need to understand why you're not doing it. If it's I try to think why that might be. Is it someone might be tempted to do something because somebody else asks, because they want to be liked or accepted?
Yeah, I'm always afraid that someone else would get upset at me or something like that.
What about association with the right people? It seems like that was what you were talking about.
That is a very good point.
If you associate with bad people, then naturally they're going to encourage you to do all these things.
Yeah, that's right. If you find anybody you find that is suggesting consistently that you do something that's not in keeping with the precepts, then you probably shouldn't associate with that person. That is a very good point. And maybe that's the way to look at it. If your concern is having somebody not like you or not accept you or something like that, is just say, how important is it to me to be liked and accepted by somebody who would ask me to do something like this? And hopefully the answer you come up with is, it's not very important, that you're better off not to associate with those people. Very good suggestion there, Michael. I think that's probably strikes at the heart of it. Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. But I do have other concerns because, fundamentally, before we're enlightened, we have a lot of needs for companionship, for confirmation of our character, for comfort, for a feeling of safety. I can understand how it is hard to let go of friends when we're not approaching enlightenment.
Yeah. Well, and the other alternative to letting go of friends is that you practice skillful means in helping them to go from an unwholesome state of motivation to something that's more wholesome, which you can't always do, which is can be a challenge, and you won't always succeed at doing it. But but to continue to put yourself in a situation of the company of people who are encouraging you to go in ways that are not good for you is obviously a mistake. Yeah, you really need to change that. And there's not a shortage of people in the world.
Yeah, I love many of my friends from my earlier years. I just don't give my new cell phone number. It's a good thing to have new cell phone numbers, so you kind of filter out some of the old friends, and then it's good to move every so often. And now I don't have any bad friends.
Well, see, there you go. That's how it works. Yeah. Because there are a lot of very wonderful people in the world, and a lot of them have good virtue and practice the Dharma. And you want to find those people, and you want to associate with them. And the others, you may just have to accept that they're not amongst the people that you'll continue to associate with. But once again, there's not a shortage of people in the world. There's a lot of people out there who are going to be wonderful people to associate with. So. Yes?
I was wondering if you could talk about subtle dullness, because I'm concerned with, strong dullness seems pretty clear, but subtle dullness is something that I'm, as far as my stages, it's hard to determine what that is exactly.
Well, the most important thing in learning to deal with subtle dullness is learning to recognize it, because it is subtle. And basically, if you compare the state of mental clarity and the vividness of your perception in the present moment with what you have enjoyed in the past, and you find that there's a difference, that it's less, then you know that subtle dullness is present. There's been some decrease in the quality of your awareness and your mental alertness. So that's really what you need to go by. There are some cues. One of them is, we've mentioned before that sometimes you can feel startled or shocked by a sudden noise. And that is very often a sign that subtle dullness is present. The more focused your concentration is, the more likely you are to be, the deeper your concentration is, the more likely you are to be surprised by a sudden sound. And that's true. But also, the deeper your concentration is, the more vulnerable you are to subtle dullness. And if you find that you jerk, you're shocked, you're startled when there's sudden noises and things like that, that's often an indication that you're not just that you have deep concentration, but that you have an element of dullness that's in there as well. So it has a positive side of being an indication of concentration, but it's also an indicator that you would benefit by increasing the level of your mindful awareness. It is an interesting thing that the more fully aware that you are, the more difficult it is to startle you. And this is one of those things that has been observed in actually some studies of meditators that were done a long, long time ago, that experienced Buddhist meditators, their EEGs show much less of what do they call it when you're No, it's anyway the startled response, the surprise reaction. That if they're exposed to an unexpected loud noise, that on the EEG it clearly registers that they're aware of it. It's not like they were just oblivious to it. So their EEG shows a spike, but other parts of the EEG that usually are associated with being startled or frightened don't show any response, and the meditators don't. They don't jerk and things like that. So it's as though your awareness is so high that even a sudden sound, the mind recognizes it and isn't surprised by it. In that split second, it's already recognizing, accepting, and leaving it behind. Other ways that you can recognize subtle dullness. There is a tendency when subtle dullness is present for there to be a very comfortable feeling in the body. But you can distinguish between that and there is a stillness of the body with a great degree of comfort that is a very positive sign and is associated with concentration. The difference between the two, how to describe it, the comfortableness associated with dullness is more like the warm, soft comfortableness you might feel in a comfortable bed. Whereas there is a stillness in concentration that is actually the beginning of physical pliancy, so it's called physical pliancy, where the feeling is you don't want to move the body. It feels pleasant, it feels still, but it has a certain lightness, sort of an emptiness, more as if your body is this light, almost translucent, perhaps just a shell of the body, and it's pleasant and comfortable, absolutely. But it has that. It doesn't feel. It doesn't have that solid, warm feeling that dullness does. So if you're sitting in meditation and you're feeling too comfortable, then it's good to examine your mind in terms of the clarity of your awareness. As a matter of fact, that's the other thing to do, is to just check in every now and then. You're having a great meditation, staying with the breath, everything like that. Every now and then, just examine the quality of your awareness with that question, like, is this as sharp and clear as it was earlier? Is this as my perception as vivid as it has been in the past? After a while, you come to recognize subtle dullness, and subtle dullness is very easy to correct. When you recognize it, almost instantaneously, you just bring your focus back to the meditation object, and you brighten up your perception of it, and so you can get rid of it quite easily. The challenge is just recognizing it. The greatest danger of subtle dullness is it can become habitual. You get a habit of getting into that comfortable place and becoming more and more dull and just staying there. And the problem is that your meditation won't progress. You'll just stay right there. Every time you sit down, you'll come to a state of concentration, body will feel really good, mind will settle in, and you can stay in that subtle dullness. Most of the time, if you don't correct for subtle dullness, it's going to become strong dullness. You're going to start going into sleepiness. But over time, if you don't recognize the difference between subtle dullness and the goal of developing single-pointedness, you can train yourself to remain in a state of subtle dullness. And then that becomes your habitual way of practicing, and that's where you become stuck. So we should probably add to the list of what are the ways you can detect subtle dullness. Well, one is when you didn't detect it in time, it usually turns into strong dullness and you start experiencing sleepiness. So, hope that's helpful to you. Yeah.
Since the retreat is coming to an end, I would like to hear your opinion on, retreat, the importance of retreat, concentrated meditation retreat like this one in our practice. I have conflicted feelings towards it because I always feel every time I come to a retreat, I'm very motivated in the sense that I put everything aside. I come here, I have great expectation. I have to get something out of it, and it's very counterproductive. So it's only after 4 or 5 days then I realize, this is not what a meditation is supposed to be. So Ajahn Brahm tells this joke that there are two kind of meditation. Second noble truth meditation, craving. Third noble truth meditation is letting go.
Letting go of craving. I would agree with that, and that it seems like you have to have the second noble truth kind before you can have the third noble truth kind.
But that's true. So conflicted feeling in the sense that every retreat, no matter how I hate it at the time, it's beneficial to me afterwards.
Yeah. I think sort of a map of retreats, the way they often tend to go, is that you arrive at the retreat, and for the first day or two, the main thing that happens is either you're falling asleep because you finally have a time to relax, and you probably spent the last week making all kinds of arrangements so that you could disappear from the world and be out of contact for the retreat. So the first couple of days is a combination of a lot of thoughts like, did I remember to turn off the coffee pot that I called so-and-so, stuff like that, and falling asleep. By the time you get to, second, third, or fourth day, a lot of what you're experiencing is pain, because, the first day you probably didn't experience much more pain than you usually do when you sit at home meditating. But by the second day, those little secret spots that always tend to create a problem, whether it's your knee or your back or your shoulder or whatever, they start letting you know that, you maybe thought I didn't exist anymore, but I'm still there waiting. And, second, third, fourth day, you're getting past the sleepiness and you're not so distracted by ordinary things, but now there's a lot of pain. Then you sort of get to the stage where the thought is, where are you? The fifth day of the retreat, and I haven't really done anything more than I usually do when I meditate at home. So
That's exactly happened to me.
Well, it's happened to me many times. I think it's in general, it's sort of a thing that tends to happen. So, but then, and that's the expectations and the craving and the pressure of, and the doubt and everything kind of comes up. But it's after that you really start to get some good results, and you start to experience some progress over what your daily practice has been in the past. And of course, at that point, your problem is going to be in a shorter retreat that you don't have that many days left. And so you'll get as much benefit as you can out of it, and then you wish you had. It seems like no matter how long the retreat is, for me, by 2 or 3 days before the end of the retreat, I'm already starting to feel like, this retreat is just not long enough. there's so much more wonderful practice that I could do if only it was another week. And then you get to the last day, and your motivation tends to start slipping off because, well, it's going to be over tomorrow anyway. Right? So in general, it's from about the 5th day to the next to the last day that's when you make all your progress. So if you have a 10-day retreat, you've got a window there of about 3 or 4 days where you're going to get some really good practice in. If you're in a 3-month retreat, you've got a whole lot longer to work with. So that's where longer retreats are really valuable. 5, 6, 7-day retreats and 3-day retreats, they can be very helpful because they can give you the opportunity to deal with certain specific kinds of problems that you've been encountering in your daily practice. But they generally don't allow you to make a whole lot of really significant progress in your practice. So this is what we're doing here. This is right on the borderline. I mean, a 2-week retreat would obviously be a lot better. The extra days are very valuable. But there's no question that you can make progress in a diligent daily practice. If you practice 1 or especially 2 hours a day, and if you can maybe once a week or so practice even longer, you can make steady progress outside of retreat in a daily practice setting. But there is no question as well that the retreat has the advantage of allowing you to reach a depth of concentration, to get past all the initial distractions, to get to the point where you don't need as much sleep, and to really move forward in a way that it's going to take much, much longer in a daily practice. So there's no question of the value of retreats. And then the other aspect of retreats is that however much progress you have made, then you go back to your regular life and you see that fading away. I mean, always at the end of the retreat is the determination, I'm going to keep my practice up, and I'm not going to lose any of the concentration and mindful awareness that I developed in the retreat. But the truth is that you are. That's just the way it is. When you go back to the world and you've got all your unanswered emails and you go back to work and your family and everything else, it's going to start eroding. But it's very important that you hold on to it as much of it as you can, for as long as you can.
I'd like to share with everybody my experience, because last year I started to do this retreat business. So last year I went to 4 times the retreat, and I think it's very beneficial is that you have to determine after you come back home, you have to make your priority, what is important in your life. And I think as soon as you make your priority, and if you value practice Dharma, you will change your lifestyle. That happened to me. I used to be, she knows, I used to be very social, very active person. I have lots of friends. I go to lots of things. But after I made my priority, I really cut down. I don't return email. I don't check my email that frequent, And then I cut down lots of activity. And I told my husband that this is important to me. I sit down, discuss with my husband. I tell him that this is important to me. So lots of unnecessary family gathering, I just don't show up. I show up the very important one. And then I'd be able to manage. Every day I give myself 3 to 4 hours to do meditation. I break to 3 to 4 times. In between the housework or I needed to go out to shopping, I managed to do that. Even for me, I have a husband and kids I need to take care. I think if I can do it, you can do it.
Well, thank you. That's very true. That's very important. Right after the retreat, you're going to have the strongest motivation. So that's the best time to make the changes in your life that are going to allow you to practice more. A week later, the motivation won't be as strong. But, right away, while the motivation is really strong, you can, and it's all a question of priority. You have to look at all the things that are important in your life and decide where it fits, and then make the adjustments that reflect that priority. I will add to that, though. It's a really good time maybe to resign from the board of directors of 2 or 3 of your favorite charities and corporations and things like that. It's not a good time to go home and say, well, I'm going to quit my job and leave my wife.
Could be a good thing, though.
No.
Could be a good thing. No, not necessarily for everybody, but it could be good for certain people. Maybe their determination is so strong, they can really make something of themselves.
Well, that's true. If you've been thinking of quitting your job for the last year anyway, that might be the right time to do it.
Do you think, how about become a monastic?
To become a monastic? The same thing. If it's a new idea that came up during meditation, I would give it more thought rather than do it right away. That if it's something that you had given thought to previously and it's a direction you'd been moving, you come out of a retreat with a strong motivation to do that, well, then do that. It's a good idea. It's a good time.
Because, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just a short comment. Other than you, I think you're the only example of a lay person who's very, very well established in a practice that people can go to you for very good instructions. But most of the teachers out there, just about all of them are monks or nuns. So there's probably a relationship between people who practice that full time, becoming a monastic, and success in the practice. Of course, you gave us a lot of hope. We see you having so much success. It gives it tells us that we can also succeed very similarly.
Yes, and I want to do that. I want you to recognize that you can do that. But it will involve sacrificing some other things in your life. And it is a question of priority. Those other things stop to be important. And that's what I did. I made choices because it was my greatest priority was to practice the Dharma. And so I took all the steps that seemed appropriate to be able to do that. And I encourage everyone, all the lay practitioners that I meet, to understand that there's no part of this Dharma that a lay person can't achieve. A lay person can achieve the deep jhanas. A lay person can achieve the stages of enlightenment. But the lay person that we're talking about is not the lay person who is spending all of their time doing the kinds of things that most people do. But I look at somebody like yourself. You're very, very dedicated, and you make choices like when you have time off from work, you choose to go on retreats or to go see meditation teachers, things like that. And of course, that's a big change. Most people, they have time off from work, and it's like, do I go to Cancun or they want to their orientations, where do I go for relaxation and enjoyment and excitement and stimulation? So there's that shift in priorities. If you have free time in your day, do you watch television or do you meditate or read the Dharma? And that's the kind of shift that takes place. Hopefully it'll take place naturally. The more you practice and the more you study the Dharma, the more you want to practice and the more you want to study the Dharma. Part of it is getting to the stage in your meditation practice where you really look forward to it. And of course, you really look forward to your meditation practice if it makes you feel good. If there is a combination of insight occurring so that you feel like you're enjoying the results of your practice, and there is joy and happiness arising in your practice, and there's not a lot of pain and distraction and falling asleep and the feeling like you're putting in time and getting nowhere. So you get your practice to a certain point, and it gets really easy to practice. You're looking forward to practice. You're always sort of thinking, well, when's the next opportunity that I'm going to have that can do some extra meditation? And the same thing with practicing the Dharma. With studying the Dharma. You're not interested in seeing the latest movie or reading a novel, but when's your opportunity to read in the sutras or read what some teacher has to say on a topic that you're interested in? A layperson who lives in that way can achieve anything that a monastic can. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, of all of the monastics in the world, there are those that stand out because they have made practice their priority, and amongst those, some of those have become teachers, and we learn a lot from them, and we go to see them. But all the rest of the monastics, what are they doing? Well, a lot of them, they're busy running monasteries and organizing events in the local communities and doing fundraising and setting up a library and all this other stuff that's not that different from what most lay people are doing anyway. And so if you really look within the monastic community, it's set up to support the monastics in being able to devote their time to practice. But it also creates all of these opportunities for the monastics to spend all their time doing all kinds of very mundane and very ordinary things as well. So don't compare yourself in your situation as a layperson that unfavorably as with a monastic. A lot of the same choices are there, and they all come down to what are your priorities. And so much of it is you have to do enough to get to the point where the motivation is there and the desire is there, and it becomes easy to do. Whether you're a monastic or whether you're a layperson, it's going to be the same thing. As a monastic, sure, you can go and meditate, but until you get to the point where your practice starts to be fulfilling and satisfying and has a momentum of its own, you're going to have a resistance to practice. And if something else comes up, there's going to be the temptation to do that instead. So, I think that probably in the future, I think the future of Buddhism is going to involve a lot more in the way of lay people. There's a wonderful tradition that goes back to the time of Buddha, where one day a week actually in the time of the Buddha, it was based on the quarters of the moon, but it still comes down to about once every 7 days. And the way we structure things now, the same day of the week, is called Uposatha. And it's a day when, at the time of the Buddha, it was first set aside as a day when the bhikkhus would get together and they would recite the rules of the order. And then later on, the Buddha instructed the bhikkhus that this was a day when lay people could come and the bhikkhus were to give them instruction in the Dhamma. And then in a number of Theravadan countries, this is continued, and so lay Buddhists will go to a local monastery on Uposatha Day, and they will spend time in meditation and they will hear Dharma talks. It's a 24-hour period. Sometimes they'll stay overnight. It still does take place, but it's something that has largely fallen away. It's not done nearly as commonly as it could be, and it's something that I would really like to see come to be instituted in North America, because North America already has a tradition from the Christians and from the Jews of a Sabbath, of 1 day a week that is set aside for religious practice. And I think North American Buddhists, it would be wonderful if that became much more commonly practiced, that 1 day a week would be devoted entirely to practice and to Dharma talks and to reading. A great way for lay practitioners to really put some oomph behind the development of their practice. With a regular Uposatha day practice, that could be a day when instead of meditating 1 or 2 hours a day, you might meditate 3 or 4 hours in the day. And it's also can be combined with study and other practices. So that's one suggestion that I would have for lay people. The other, as I already mentioned, you have a job, you have limited time available. If you have a family, that you need to look at your life and structure it in such a way that you can do the practice. And for most lay people, that's going to mean getting up earlier. Wonderful time, because everybody else is still asleep. They're not going to bother you. You get up earlier. You have the time to do the practice while your mind is fresh, before you have all these distractions present. Of course, it's going to mean that you have to go to bed earlier. But what do most people do after, say, something like 8 o'clock in the evening anyway? They're entertaining themselves. They're visiting and engaging in idle talk, or they're watching television, or DVDs, or they're reading novels, or things like this. So what you're giving up to be able to establish a practice period in your daily life, it's not that much, and it's also something that's going to tend to become less and less important to you anyway. And then there's holiday and vacation times. When you have a vacation, you don't always have to. Sometimes you have to go and visit family and relatives. That's an important thing to do, I think, and there's a certain degree of obligation and responsibility in that. But at the same time, if there's anybody that you can come to understand that you have a religious practice, a spiritual practice that's important in your life, it's going to be family. And so part of organizing your life for an effective practice is going to be saying that of my vacation and of my holiday time, Thanksgiving, Easter break, Christmas, so on and so forth, this is for the family, and that's always for the family. But this is my chance to go on a longer retreat. This is my chance to do something more for myself. In that way, you can all achieve the goals of the practice.
I'm sorry about that.
It's the kind of you answered my question.
Since you mentioned that, I'd like to have your advice. Like recently, especially this year, after I involved practice Dharma, I feel like I lost the interest in. I used to love novel, movie, play. I have a group of artist friends, writer friends. We go to discuss, we watch movie, we discuss, that sort of thing. But now, it seems for me that I lose the interest. They wanted to go to this play, that play, movie. I always say no, so I kind of lose these friends. And I want you to give us some advice.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That is a reality of it. That is a sacrifice or change that you make. As you become more involved in the Dharma and practice, a lot of your friends are going to find you totally boring and not interesting anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. And and the same thing. You're going to find them not interesting anymore.
Yes.
Whereas at one time you used to love to sit down and get together and gossip about all your other friends who weren't there, and you won't want to do that anymore. You'll sit there and, I don't really want to hear this. Exactly. Or they'll talk about television shows. Did you see last night? And it's like for years I had not the faintest idea what people were talking about because I never watched television. And I noticed how much time people spent talking about the television shows they watched or the movies that they went to, and I wasn't interested. This is going to happen to you. The more you become involved in the Dharma, the more the people that you used to associate with, you're going to find that you don't have the same interests anymore. And from your side, you don't want to waste your time doing those kinds of things, because after all, you could be practicing or studying the Dharma or listening to a Dharma talk. And from their side, it's like they will say of you to other people, "Oh, she's not really any fun anymore. I don't know, since she got involved with that Buddhism, she's turned into a total bore. Hardly see her anymore." And that's the way it is. You've got to accept that's going to happen. On the other hand, you'll have another kind of friend. You'll have the friends you meet at the Dharma talks you go to, and the friends that belong to your meditation group.
Yes.
And you'll have wonderful times with them. You'll get together with them and sit around the table, and you'll talk about emptiness and impermanence, and have you heard this teacher say, they got some new tapes out, a great talk, have you heard that? I'll lend you my copy. You have a new kind of social structure and friends.
Yes.
But the worst part, and this is part of it too, is your family, because you can change friends. You can let the old friends go away and bring in the new friends.
Impermanent.
Yeah.
But your family, they're going to say the same thing too. They're going to say, you're just not as much fun as you used to be. And that's something that may be a little more painful to accept, but it's true. By their standards,
Yeah, my husband complained that he thinks I'm getting boring because I only want to talk about the meaning of life and
yeah, and that that happens, and sometimes it can mean that you drift apart, or sometimes it means that after a while your partner becomes interested in. And then that's really good, because then now you have a Dharma friend who is also your life partner. It's more difficult with your children. Your children, Mom, you're no fun anymore. And it's like, that's hard to take.
for parents.
But whoever said that you could achieve the highest attainable goals without some sacrifice? I don't remember that being part of the deal. And in the going forth, it's much more dramatic than that. You're leaving your family entirely behind. You're leaving your father standing in the door with an angry scowl, shaking his head while your mother's crying in the yard, rubbing your hands together, and you're going off to take ordination and maybe never see them for 4, 5, 6 years. That's what the going forth was about. Leaving family behind entirely, leaving everything behind. So there's some sacrifice, yeah.
The Buddha did teach a middle path, though. I think, for me personally, it seems that I have, family. If you got, for example, my kids, there's no way that I would ever, I think I would choose my kids over enlightenment, to be honest. And I feel like, it's not an impossibility to incorporate them into, to teach them and to, make it part of your lifestyle, to incorporate them into your practice.
And that's to choose your children over enlightenment. That's where you are right now, and that's fine. But I would even say one of the reasons that I think that lay practice is so important, developing a really strong group of lay practitioners who are dedicated enough that they succeed in achieving the highest states possible, is because they are lay people, because they have family, because they have neighbors, because they have co-workers. The Dharma as something that only a small, very tiny group of ever achieves the fruits of, that's not what the world needs. That's not what's going to bring all beings to liberation. The Dharma has to permeate everywhere. And so that's why it's important that there are, and come to be, what I would like to see maybe 10, 15, 20 years from now is many, many people practicing the Dharma in a very serious and dedicated way. And everybody knows some people that they work with, some neighbors, has some people in their family that are dedicated lay practitioners and live in this way. The effect is going to be that for some of your children, enlightenment's going to be more important than you. And that's going to be a good thing. Okay?
But I figure that if we become a Buddhist, if we become a better and better person, the people around us will notice.
Exactly.
And then we can kind of make them think that Buddhism is a great thing to do.
That's exactly right. That's what I was trying to say. So thank you. Is that lay practitioners out there in the world, they're not only going to be seen as lay practitioners, they're going to be seen as people practicing virtue, people with mindful awareness, people who are compassionate, people who are acting out of loving kindness. They will be seen as people who are not drawn to entertainment by through violence and some of the undesirable things. They'll be seen as superior people that other people will be attracted to emulate, to become like. That's what we want to see. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question. My husband is Catholic, and well, he is a great person, for not for people around. I'm just wondering, is there anything I can get in common from different religion, and then I don't know, something I can do.
This is a very real challenge because yes, your husbands and wives and other family members and neighbors are going to already be committed to other religious practices. In the case of Catholicism, there is a very strong contemplative movement in Catholicism. It's called the Centering Prayer Movement. Father Keating and some other, their names escape me at the moment, but that is something that is very Catholic, but at the same time has so much in common with Buddhist meditation and contemplation that I think it's a way of finding a common ground. I don't think everybody has to necessarily take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha to begin to actually practice the Dharma and enjoy the benefits. And in their highest form, I think every one of the world's major spiritual paths, major religions, in its highest and most fully developed form, has the same, many of the same goals and standards. And so it's where the similarities are that the emphasis should be. And that's where you can find a common ground. The practice of virtue and the practice of meditation is not really in conflict, as far as I know, with any other religious practice. When you start talking about anatta, selflessness, or no soul, to a Christian or a Muslim or something like that, then it becomes really difficult. But you don't need to enter that ground in order to have a lot in common.
So it more comes down to skillfulness, how we interact with family members. Say, for example, what happened to have families who actually have zero interest in your practice and what they believe it's like weird version of the Mahayana, but it's whatever to their interpretation of it. But then some part of the sutra said that we're responsible to take care of our parents. So at some point it's gonna come down to they had to live with me and I had to take care of them. And so it would just be, I guess it'll be a big adjustment for both parts.
That's right, it will. My parents just moved in with us about 3 weeks ago. We thought it would happen sooner and there would be more time to settle in before we left for this retreat. So it's been very difficult because they got there and the house that they built wasn't finished, and they didn't get the telephone till yesterday, so all this time I wasn't even able to, having to get other people to come in and make sure that they were all right. Just had my parents move in. It's going to make a big change, but it's going to be a wonderful thing too. Can take care of them. They're in their late 80s, and it's part of what is. Yeah. Yes.
I have one quick question and a slightly longer question. Out of the 1,200 people that gathered, the 1,200 arahats that gathered for the meeting with the Buddha, just out of curiosity, would you know, are they like a mix of are they primarily monastic people? Because that's kind of like a good indication of how successful people can be if.
Well, this is actually, as far as I know, in the sutra that refers to that there's no way of knowing, and I would assume that a very large proportion of them would have been bhikkhus, just because there were literally thousands of bhikkhus that were wandering around, and as many of them at a time as could would tend to follow the Buddha wherever he went.
Oh,
so,
I see.
So I would guess that a lot of them were. But the more important point is in the sutras, there are many, many references to lay people achieving the different stages of enlightenment, including becoming arhats. So I think that's the important thing.
Mm-hmm.
That if we go to the sutras, we find confirmation and reassurance that enlightenment to the number of stream entrants that are clearly identified as lay people is, as you would expect, larger than the number of arhats. But there are quite a few lay arhats that are specifically mentioned, and some are mentioned over and over again. So there's absolutely no question at all. This is something that's accessible for a layperson.
I read somewhere it says that, I'm not sure if it's correct, it says when you reach the stage of arahat, if you're a layperson, you either have to go first, or you...
Who has to go first?
Or become bhikkhu.
Yes, that's right. There is this thing, and this does not come from the sutra or the Buddhas, but yes, there is this thing that has been said for a long time, that when you reach, sometimes they say when you reach the stage of the non-returner, others say when you reach the stage of the arhat, they say that you have to become a bhikkhu within, I've heard, some say within 24 hours or you'll die, and others say that within 30 days or you'll die. But I mean, this is just one of those things.
Also, I've heard rumors that if you're a lay person, you cannot get arahat.
Yes,
achieve arahat.
Yes, that is one of the things. That is one of the.
It's not true at all. Right?
That's one of the beliefs that's circulated, but definitely in the sutras there are lay people who are arhats. So therefore,
definitely okay. So the rumors are wrong.
Actually, one of the things that was circulated not that long ago was that it was no longer possible for people to become arhats in this world.
Oh,
and
yeah, that's right.
There were certain places where that was a commonly held belief.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So you can't believe everything you hear.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes?
This is like another topic.
What's that?
I just have a question.
On a different topic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know why sometimes we have energy like on chakras and our chakras? Like sometimes I feel this energy here, and like why do we can't feel like energy down our body and stuff?
This is something that is very commonly experienced in meditation practice, is energy. You become aware of it, and become aware of it moving. And there are different traditions and practices over time that have spent a lot of time studying and describing movements of energies. And when you compare these, you find that there's a lot of similarities. So the idea of chakras is something that comes from the East Indian description of the movement of energy and energy centers. And you find that it has its counterpart in the description of chi. And so I think what this is doing is saying that this is a universal phenomenon, that in certain kinds of states we experience energy rising, and that the way that energy manifests, the way that it seems to collect and move, that it has characteristics that have been designated by terms like chakras and channels, and in the Tibetan tradition that's spoken of as the winds, the movement of the inner winds. So it's a phenomenon that is a part of cultivating concentration. that it experienced, and it has its own reality, and out of that reality there's certain patterns that occur over and over again. And these have been described in terms of chakras amongst a number of other ways. And so when you ask, why is it that you sometimes have an experience of energy and it seems to be associated with certain chakras, that's why. It's one of the, what would you call it? I think, what would you call it? A side effect? Not really, because it actually plays a role in the development of concentration, but it's a part of it. It's a normal part of it. What it actually means in scientific terms, well, we don't have an answer to that. And there are different philosophical systems who describe it and describe it in different ways, and likewise they ascribe different degrees of significance to it. And so I'm not in a position to say which ones are right or wrong, or whether they're all right or they're all wrong or anything else, but they're out there and they're there, and they seem to be so consistent that it seems to be a universal phenomenon with human beings, that we have these kinds of experiences under certain kinds of circumstances. So. Okay.
I remember you mentioned that once returners still have the concept of continuity. What does it mean?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all of what you said.
You mentioned that once returner still has the sense or the concept of continuity.
The once returner has a
sense of self.
Sense of like cling to self. Continue.
The streamliner still has a sense of self, and the once returner still has the concept of continuousness. Am I wrong or like that?
So you hear it. You hear it.
Maybe I forgot the concept you mentioned. You mentioned that the streamliner still has the sense of self.
The streamliner does still have that sense of self, even though they have had an experience which prevents them from becoming attached to the belief in a personal self any further. The once returner, what's happened with the once returner is that the strength of craving has been greatly diminished, and with the diminishing of the strength of craving, there is also that sense of self is not as strong. I'm not sure what I might have said with regard to continuity. I can't. It's not.
Maybe I'm wrong. I forgot.
Are you talking about the non-returner?
Yeah.
Sensual craving in subtle form have all been destroyed, but there's an inherent self feeling as there's a separate entity. There's a craving for existence.
That's what I wrote down too.
Is that what you're talking about?
Still feel this separateness. I don't recall the continuity in it.
Yeah.
Separate.
But there is, for the non-returner, there is still this sense of a separate existence, and still a clinging to existence. So they're called a non-returner because if they don't become an arhat before they die, that they won't return to this world, but rather they'll achieve the final enlightenment from a deva realm. But they still have a desire for existence in a material or fine material or immaterial. Not in the sense realm. They have no further desire for, no sense craving and no desire for existence in the sense realm. But they still have the desire for existence in the fine material or the immaterial realm, which is what they would be reborn in. This is the only craving that they have left, is for the continuation of separate existence. Maybe that's the continuation that. And then, if you look at what remains, the defilements that remain for a non-returner that disappear when they become an arhat, it said that they have conceit, and by conceit, it doesn't mean that I am better than you, but it means that the way it's stated in the sutras is the belief that I am better than you, that I am the same as you, or that I am less than you. What it's saying is it's still describing the attachment to a separate existence. I'm separate from you is really what it's saying. Likewise, the desire for immaterial and fine material existence are two more. And then there's restlessness and there's jealousy. These are the last defilements or mental afflictions that the non-returner has and that are eliminated in the arhat. But when you look at them, what they're really all about is this continued sense of and craving for continued separate existence. Okay? So, I'm not sure if that's exactly what you were asking about, but that's what I can tell you, and that probably what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So you mean the non-returner still have jealousy?
Yes, but it's a very refined and subtle form of jealousy.
It's all right.
Yeah,
It's not noticeable by the mundane person.
Yes, it's not the kind of jealousy to a mundane person, but
jealous
it's related to the attachment to a sense of being a separate entity, a separate existence. And so, as long as there is a sense of being a separate entity, there comes with it the sense of me and mine. And so they're not saying that this person is going to be a jealous and possessive person the way an ordinary person would be, but because they still have this sense of me and mine. That's what the jealousy is referring to.
Oh.
They still have an attachment to the sense of, this is my robe and this is my bowl. They may be willing to give it away to you, but even as they give it away, it's my bowl that I'm giving you.
Oh, I see. I saw that the stream inter is
You can say
a stream winner is already break the concept of self.
The stream winner overcomes the belief in and attachment to the personal self. But he still has the sense of separate selfhood.
Oh.
There's still this inherent sense of being a self, even though there is the knowledge and understanding, the supramundane knowledge and understanding that there really is no self. Even though he knows it, he still feels like there's a self. Okay?
This self is very stubborn.
That's right. It is. It absolutely is.
So how could it possibly be that somebody have jealousy and not aversion? Because the natural reaction to jealousy is some level of aversion. But you said the non-returner have no aversion at all. It's like somebody. It's like the arahat's husband slept with somebody else. And then there's some slight jealousy.
Well, this is
there's no aversion.
That's right.
Well, the way that, these two terms, conceit and jealousy, the way they are explained is that they're not referring to the kind of conceit, that kind of jealousy, and the kind of conceit that we normally think of. That the conceit of a non-returner is the fact that he still has this sense of being a separate entity, even though it's not associated with any craving.
Associated with any craving.
It's not associated with any sensual craving. It's only associated with the remaining craving for existence, as a sense of separate existence and as a craving for separate existence. That's what conceit refers to. And because there is this sense of separate existence and the craving for separate existence, there is also, comes along with that, the sense of me and mine. And so there may not be attachment, desire and aversion for material things, because there's no longer the craving for sensual things. But there is still the sense of mineness, that even though I'm not attached to this and I'm willing to give it to you, it still feels like mine. That's what conceit. Okay. That's what not conceit. That's what jealousy is referring to. It's not referring to the strong jealousy associated with aversion and and desire.
It's not the jealousy of what I had in mind. Okay.
Yeah, it's that's the way it's explained. Because yes, otherwise it becomes really confusing. Well, so if somebody is on the verge of becoming an arhat, becoming a Buddha, yet they still feel jealousy and conceit. So it doesn't make much sense. But this is how it's explained. So thank you. Time for lunch. All right. Thank you very much. And I hope this final afternoon of practice goes really well for you, and we'll talk tonight.